All right, let's call this meeting to order. Erin, would you like to call the roll?
Student Trustee Kinsland.
Here.
Trustee James.
Present.
Trustee Morton.
Here.
Trustee Schaefer.
Present.
Trustee Ohm.
Here.
Trustee Griffin.
Here. All right. Well, we have a timed item at 5:35, and that only took 20 seconds to call the roll. But let's get right to that, and if anyone, yeah, go ahead, Erin.
1.2.
Sure, of course. Sit.
Oh, I was just going to say we need to do 1.2. We just need to approve the agenda.
Oh, very good point. Maybe that'll take 3.5 minutes. Okay.
We can slow play it real
We
quick.
just have one item on the agenda tonight. Does anyone want to move to approve the agenda?
I'll move to approve.
Thanks, Ms. Barrett. Thank you, Mark.
Student Trustee Kinsland.
Yes.
Trustee James.
Yes.
Trustee Morton.
Yes.
Trustee Schaefer.
Yes.
Trustee Ohm.
Yes.
Trustee Griffin.
Yes. All right. Thank you. I will now move to item 2. We do have a timed item here for parent or community comment. This is a time for people who might have something they want to comment on any item that's not on the agenda tonight to say something. John, would you like to go ahead? Sure. Thanks.
Okay, I'll try and make this quick before we can get to the main event. So just wanted to have a quick follow-up on the conversation last month regarding the naming of buildings and places on the campus. And there's much to be said here, but I feel like it's in our best interest as a school to improve the policy as is written so we don't have another situation like we had last month. As of now, I don't feel like that process is going anywhere, and I think it's a big shame for baseball. And hopefully we can turn that particular event around. But I don't want that to happen to anybody else in the future that wants to name a facility. And that was humiliating for the people involved, and we need a better process. So there were several things. I looked at the tape. There's several things that I feel like the board and staff could do to answer their own questions, like what places on campus have a name, what's our policy for maintaining those, what's needed for somebody to come with a proposal, just kind of formalize that a little bit more. And so a request for you all to do that. Maybe we can resuscitate this particular one as well with a little bit of soul searching and some discussions there. So thank you.
Thanks, John.
Uh-huh.
Any other parent or community comment on anything that's not on tonight's agenda? Okay. Let's move on to item 3.1, the possible acquisition of MCN by the City of Fort Bragg. The City of Fort Bragg has offered to purchase the assets of MCN from the district for $500,000 to be paid over 10 years, maintaining the current employees and pension benefits. I think this is a recommendation coming from our MCN Advisory Committee, so would either Michael or Mark like to provide sort of an overview and report on where we're at?
Well, I'll speak for myself, and Mark can add his insights, but I think our recommendation is to consider this seriously and to move ahead on principle. We don't have a proposed final contract to vote on, yes or no. And I guess in terms of my history of being involved in the district, before I became a trustee in 2003, I was on a committee that was exploring the sale of MCN, headed by Tomek Wielkowski. And it basically didn't go anywhere because there were no viable buyers. We've had 2 or 3 other times when we've reached issues about the survivability of MCN. And similarly, we didn't have viable offers, and we went back and did it. This time, I think we have a viable offer, and we have to consider whether or not it's in the best interest of the district to accept it. I think there are many pros in terms of doing it, and I will wait on my feeling about that probably till later in the discussion. But I think that my sense of the advisory committee is that we agree that this is something we should consider seriously and move forward with, and see what objections come up from the community, what objections come up from other stakeholders, and see if this is what it appears to me to be, the best way of guaranteeing MCN's long-term viability as a resource for the coast.
I would second what Michael said. This is a sort of emotional issue for me. I was here at the beginning of all this, and it was a magical time, and the results were magical for this community and for this school district. The fact that we got to work together with the National Aeronautics and Space Administration to start MCN, got grants from them and grants from the Autodesk Foundation and grants from Pacific Telephone and the Walter S. Johnson Foundation. It was a really exciting time, and I think we provided a tremendous benefit to the district and this community. It's an odd thing for a school district to run a business. It always has been. It still is. And back then we were growing toward 1,000 students, and now we're down to 400 and something. When I got here, we were down at 300 and something, and then we grew, and then we shrunk again. And for a tiny school district to manage a business like this it's not a huge challenge. It doesn't take up a ton of Jason's time, but there are so many things we need to do in such a small district. Jason has taken over maintenance in addition to other superintendent duties, and it feels to me like Fort Bragg would be a good fit for this. They have this huge project. They got a huge grant to put fiber in the city limits, and it just makes sense to me, much more than any of our other attempts to sell MCN in the past did. I think they wanted to acquire MCN because they know what MCN has done for this community. And that alone, to me, is different than all of our other attempts, in that they're aware of the quality of service we offer. And I was reading an article today that Jim Hyde posted about cities all over the country doing this. I didn't realize that, but a lot of little cities all over America right now are doing this. And to me, it's an incredible thing to provide that service in place of AT&T, Comcast, and all those big organizations that will not support you because they can't. They're too big. And so bless small communities and bless MCN, and I think we should do it.
Jason, do you have anything you want to add at this point?
Yeah, just throughout our discussions, we had a number of questions that come up, and I'm sure some of the questions that folks out there have is like, what's going to happen with the continuation of existing services that are outside the city limits of Fort Bragg? We have, the majority of our customers are within Fort Bragg, but what about those that aren't? And they have assured us that they are going to continue all those services as long as they're financially viable. And then I think my biggest concern was what's going to happen to the employees that we have at MCN, and they are going to take all of those employees on as well. And they're going to be then, as part of their onboarding and HR process, they would have to follow their current procedures. But that was my biggest concern, is what's going to happen to our employees that we care very much about, their well-being. So those are two things that are out there as well. So and our employees would also have the same retirement options that they have up there. They're CalPERS, and so they wouldn't lose anything as far as their retirement goes either. So. And then the current services that the district has, we use the digital voice system through Fort Bragg, and we've been assured that throughout the life of the payments, we're going to continue to have that at the same rate. And then staff email addresses will be provided for free, essentially, as they are now, while the payments are going to. So just some other information that might be helpful for all of you.
Just to clarify one thing you said about the continuation of existing services, Fort Bragg, part of the proposal is that all the existing services currently provided to MCN customers by MCN would be provided by the city of Fort Bragg if they acquire the assets. And those would all be continued in their current form until they're either no longer financially viable or until some other service provider can offer
Right.
comparable services.
Right.
So there's no plan to change or discontinue those in
Right.
any way, and that includes MCN Fusion, Open Air, emails.
The digital voice, domain, website, not hosting, but domain hosting,
Registration.
domain registration.
And the MCN announced listserv that we just transferred sort of the moderation and
Right.
sort of ownership of to a
And that
different
will
group will
continue.
continue as it currently is as well. It's not going anywhere.
Right.
Yeah, I was also thinking about the fact if it's just mainly located in Fort Bragg, but they're going to continue to service people outside of Fort Bragg, when they get more service, better service, faster service, will everyone get that or just Fort Bragg?
Well, as I think, the way I understand it, it's just those in Fort Bragg because that's where the fiber project that they're focusing in on
Okay.
is occurring. The other services will continue as is.
And I do think we can get a couple of those questions possibly answered by folks from City of Fort Bragg who might be able to chime in. My understanding is that they are able to go beyond city limits. They don't have to contain it within the city limits as far as what, and if they do take on all the current MCN offerings, they will be running all of those offerings, obviously, like we were just saying. Mark and Michael, as far as what we're sort of looking for us, we're not looking to, you're not recommending to the board that we today accept the transaction. It's tentatively agreeing to the proposal and moving forward with it.
Right, and so that we can, there are several phases in terms of, they'll want to do due diligence of the financials and things like that. We have to, have two sets of lawyers look over contract language to make sure that we're doing that correctly. I think, there's probably a 6-month timeline between tonight and any turnover of keys type of thing. But this is the first step, which is saying that we accept it as in principle and want to go forward and go to the next steps.
So then there'd be some later approval of a contract at some point in
Yeah.
a few months in the future or so?
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's about 3 months into the process.
I would want to be sure, starting with this meeting, that all community questions get answered, and that anything we haven't thought of gets brought up and pursued.
Are there any other board questions or things that we want to talk about as a board before we do take community comment or questions?
I'd like to just amplify, MCN has had a charmed life in lots of ways. I mean, it started with dial-up and nobody had dial-up, and was very successful in doing a great job with dial-up. The dial-up was threatened by DSL, and MCN was threatened at that same time by this transition. And we got into a place where we could offer DSL through Fusion and Sonic. And that worked for a while, but we're now under a situation where that we can't take any new Fusion customers. This is something that I guess you could say AT&T is sort of enforced. The DSL is a dead technology in their eyes, and it's not supported. So we can't take new customers on that. All our new customers are wireless customers. In the wireless field, in addition to competing with Comcast and AT&T, we compete with Further Reach. Further Reach is a local company doing a great job. I mean, you know, they're service oriented. They do, they get customers that we're not serving, and they also get customers that we could serve. And so we lose customers to Further Reach. Fort Bragg is going to develop this broadband in the city of Fort Bragg and environs of Fort Bragg, whether we sell MCN to them or not. And if we don't sell MCN to them, they're going to, you know, start taking those customers as soon as they get online. So that the long-term viability of MCN standing alone without, being part of this new future through the broadband project in Fort Bragg, to my eyes, is pretty limited. And, you know, by being part of this new vision that Fort Bragg is developing, we become the way of ensuring that the 30 years of MCN continues. And I think that the, you know, things that we started in the city of Fort Bragg will continue, because that's the feeling I get from both Isaac and Sarah and the people that we've dealt with, that, you know, they have no desire to run the assets into the ground. They want to make it bigger and better. So.
And I think something like more than 800 of our 1,200 Fusion customers are in the city limits of Fort Bragg, so
Something like that.
those will eventually become city of Fort Bragg customers instead of ours,
You know, I mean,
if we keep MCN.
you know, when this is fully operational, broadband at broadband speeds will cost less than Fusion does now.
For a better product.
Yeah.
I do worry about the future of all the people up the ridges in terms of high-speed internet that's affordable. You know, I've gone to Starlink, that's $120 a month, and I don't think it's going to cost anywhere near that much in Fort Bragg for fiber. And everybody can't afford that. Everybody doesn't have a clear shot at the sky. Everybody doesn't have access to Further Reach. And their services, I mean, fiber seems really simple in a crowded community like downtown Fort Bragg. It's cheaper because all the houses are right next to each other. So I don't have an answer for that right now. For some people out there in the woods, there's certainly a lot more service than there used to be. It's important to remember that MCN started out with a wire going to NASA Ames that was 56K, 2 telephone lines. All these people were dialing in and going out over 2 telephone lines. There was no YouTube.
Right, any other board or questions or comments, or should we open it up to public questions or comments? Does anyone on the board have a preference? I'm fine with opening it up to public comment before we have a motion on the table of any kind, so I think we'll just go ahead and do that. Right, is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak, either comment, ask questions, anything like that? Yep. And just a reminder, we do have a 3-minute limit for public comment, just keep the meeting moving. I'll give you a thumbs up when you're getting kind of close to the end, so you can have a few seconds to wrap up.
I'm Tom Yates, along with my wife, Vicki Watts. We own the Coast KOZT. 3 things I want to talk about. One is the future. Don't blind yourself. We just today, we're a little radio station in the boondocks. We installed a piece of equipment that did not exist a year ago. And it's under $1,000 now, and the price is going down, and it does things we can't imagine. I played with it for half an hour because it's a new toy. These new toys, communication is the very heart of everything that's going on in technology. It's going to improve. I don't know what it is. If I did, I'd invent it and patent it, but the hills will be taken care of. We got away from, as you say, the dial-up. I remember that. Who's on the internet was the thing around the state, because we only use one at a time. That's going to change. Brings me to the second thing, which is the people. this is what I care about the most, the support. We have had a relationship with the school district for 33 plus years. We have been involved with MCN since day one. I have never, ever, in all the technical stuff I've worked with, seen the amount of support, the level of support we get. It is superlative. Rainy days, we are so dependent because we broadcast around the world, and people depend on us that don't have radios, et cetera. Rob and his crew on a roof in Fort Bragg repairing an antenna that was eaten by birds on a Saturday. That's a great way to spend a Saturday. But I need to know that we're going to, A, get that support. We have a very symbiotic relationship, and I have assurances that that will continue. And I need to know that the personnel, that the staff, the worker bees of MCN are good with the deal. Third thing, a little negative. And I know Isaac is here, the relatively new city manager of Fort Bragg. I have some fear, and I'm not a fearful person, but as a municipality, and it's changing, but the communication has not been great. It's been nothing like we have on the level with this school district and with MCN. And I don't want to see this get bogged down in bureaucracy where people are worried about, you know, positions, et cetera, that whole thing. We came here to get away from that. And I would need assurances from the city of Fort Bragg that they really are, in fact, going to continue with the services, that we're not going to immediately raise the prices because we want to make the money back. The typical corporate takeover. And again, that's no reflection whatever on Isaac or the city. We have lots of friends there. But it is a deep concern of mine that we need to have some commitment for a reasonable period of continuation of exactly what we have now, or better. And I'd like to hear from the staff of MCN that they're comfortable with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, Danny Dawson. I'm a member of the Mendocino Listserv project, which you awarded ownership management of the listservs recently. Thank you very much. It's going well. And I just had a few questions, not to you necessarily, but to the city of Fort Bragg. We would like to know what our part will be in this new new process, new development. We have been successfully operating the listservs now for over 6 months, and it's going very well, and we would like to continue doing this. And so the question is, what will be the role of the Mendocino Listserv project after this transition, if it happens? And you don't have to answer me now, but we would like to be involved in the process and kept in the loop, so to speak. And I'd like to know if if the offer that the city made to Fort Bragg is available to the public, and where, so that we could get informed about. I haven't seen it anywhere. Is that available somewhere?
It's not right now.
Not right now.
No. It's
Okay.
kind of still in the forming stages.
Mm-hmm.
It's-
Okay, all right. So yeah, basically just the clarification on what our role would be, and we would be happy to work with the city on continuing to manage the listservs. Let's see. And I do want to say that, and this has been mentioned here, in this time of corporate conglomeration of the media, MCN is so important to the community. The listservs are extremely important, and we just hope that these listservs can continue to function as they have been. And Mendocino Listserv project is very interested in being a part of this process going forward.
Thank you, Danny. Appreciate it.
Can I just say something?
Yeah. Before the next person, Jason wanted to
Yeah, so I just want to say that it would be, that was specifically brought up with Fort Bragg, and they would be continuing allowing this to happen and hosting this. And so that's a service that would continue. And then as an aside, I'll just say thank you to the Mendocino Listserv project. I think it's going great. The difference is night and day with what's being posted, so thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Good evening, I'm Rick Sachs, and I have been with MCN since it started. I have experienced the changes of life of becoming part of bigger communities than our neighborhood because of MCN. Thank you, Michael, for the Mendocino Freenet. That was a big changer. So here it is all these years later, and I have an amount of pride in an MCN email address. I respect what Mendocino Community Network has meant and how it had started and how it's grown. I have a tremendous respect for the service that we get if we call in for help. It's just grown through the years and got better and better. Thank you, Rob. One of the things that I'm concerned about is I've seen so many times over the years where a business gets sold and told we're keeping all of your current employees and just transferring the jobs over, and within a couple of months that's all gone and it's new people, and I really don't want to see that lost. And I'd like to hear something from Fort Bragg that has some assurance that that tech support will be there, that those of us that live outside of the city in rural areas can keep our MCN email address, and that our websites can be hosted there, and that it can continue for the rest of us as it has been. I think those are some of my concerns. I don't know what will change with Fort Bragg that those of us outside of Fort Bragg are going to see. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, please.
Hi, my name is Rick Giles. I live in Casper, and I don't have anything further to add. I think what Tom and Rick Sachs said about assurance that the really wonderful small town support, all the little services, the listserv, the MCN emails, and for me personally, because I have a couple of websites that the hosting will continue. To hear that they plan on doing that is really wonderful. But I think also it should be put in writing, very clearly spelled out for the next 5 years or 8 years or something like that. These services will be maintained, and so that the cost and the services that stay the same, that also be included, that cost increases will be proportionate to inflation or something like that, so that we're providing it, but the price just doubled and takes people out of the picture. So thank you for your really wonderful, caring and wanting to make sure everything happens, because MCN is such a really wonderful service that we have. I appreciate the way you phrased it. I wrote it down. MCN has been a long-term viable resource for the coast, and I hope exactly all those things are here 5 years from now.
Before we have more public comment, how many people here in the room are here in part because they really want to see their MCN email addresses stayed? If you want to keep those, okay. And how about folks who enjoy use of the announced listserv and want to make sure it stays in place? We got some of those folks as well. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to just, see where we're at and have public input that way as well. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Jerry Moore. I'm Senior Network Administrator for MCN. I've worked at MCN over 2 decades. So I've been there essentially since it was a dial-up company and it was offered T1 services, and I've been there for a long, long time. I kind of grew up with Rennie and Mitch and the rest, and I've watched it turn into this amazing, just beautiful entity. I've helped develop it. I've helped build it and maintain it. And I have a lot of my heart invested in MCN. So I'm pretty concerned about the future of MCN going to the city. Like, I think it's a good growth step for MCN. I think it's important for MCN to grow and continue on. And if it can help facilitate the fiber project and turn and build that, that's a great thing for us. I am concerned though that one of the reasons I've always been attracted to MCN and not really wanted to leave is because I like the idea that our money helps the school, that our money funds the school in some way. Now I get that there's going to be like 10 years of payments or something with this, but I'm concerned that that beautiful little piece of us will vanish. And I don't want to sit there and be just funding some city thing that I don't understand or that doesn't make sense to me. It's not helping school programs. It's not helping with those type of things. And I'd really like to know that those kind of, our money is going to go help the greater good like that. Because there's just not enough money for schools anymore. And I want to make sure that my purpose and my mission helps with that. That's important to me. And I think it's important to the staff. Other thing I'm really concerned about from an employee standpoint is I'm concerned about the time off we get, our vacation days, our sick days, our holidays. Those are different at the city. I'd like some level of assurance that those things won't change for us right away. Our medical is different than the cities. We already pay a lot for medical, as everyone knows. And city, from what I understand, doesn't have as good of medical benefits as we do. And I don't want to have to pay more money out of my pocket to get to the same level of medical coverage I have now because this business is being sold. It's hard enough as it is. Inflation isn't matching raises. Just fact of life. So those are things that I'm really concerned about. I'm concerned about our employees' futures. I'd like some level of assurance that I don't really want to go through a probationary period. I've done my tenure. I've got a lot of time on the job. I don't feel like I should have to go through a probationary period just because they're taking over MCN. I feel like that's a little unjust. That's a little bit of a hard call, especially when we're not moving to a new job. I'm keeping my same job supposedly, right? I hope that would be the case. I'm also concerned about where we're going to be at the city. Like, I don't want us to be stuck in some weird office in the city that doesn't have ease of customer access and those kind of things. We're all in super tight quarters with it. It's a very stressful job. I'll just say that. And our people need the ability to not be bombarded with a bunch of other city services hitting us or near us all the time like that. We need our own space. We need our own dedicated space. It's a very challenging job. And I'm concerned about the staffing. We're going to ramp up for fiber. We're already really pushed on projects with our employees that we have right now. So does that mean they're going to hire new people? Are they for sure going to do that? Are they going to help us out with that? Are we going to have to try to struggle by with what we have? All those things are really concerning to me as an employee and to safeguard our current employees. So that's kind of all I have to say. I'm excited about it and I'm super nervous about it. So it's a scary time. All that kind of stuff is scary, but obviously I think it's for the better good probably, but I just want to make sure the schools, we help the schools or we help programs in some way. I'd like to see our money go help that. So that's it. That's all I have.
Thank you, Jerry. Really appreciate that. Now may be a good time for either the city of Fort Bragg or maybe Rob to speak to any other questions. Oh, we have okay, why don't we go to, do we have a hand up online?
Go ahead, Jim.
There we go. Yes, there we go. First off, thank you for negotiating this wonderful deal. If you run the numbers, this has a net present value of $375,000, and that is an excellent offer. Coming from the perspective of the school district, you have to accept this deal. This is by far the best offer you could ever get for MCN. What happens with MCN when the Fort Bragg takes it over? Well, that's up to Fort Bragg. But the school district would be alleviated of the liability of owning a venture like MCN. It hasn't always been an easy ride with MCN. There have been years where there was no contribution at all. So this takes all that off the table, gets rid of a headache, and gets the MCN in hands that can manage it the way it really should be managed. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. It looks like Anna Marie has her hand up as well.
Good evening. I listened to what Jerry Moore had to say and all of you, and he brought up the issue where MCN would be housed. And that was one of my questions. I was wondering, if MCN would move out of the current building, and then if that's not the case, if they will move out, I'd like to know what the plans are for the building they're in now. And I support what everybody said earlier on. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna Marie. I appreciate that. All right. Did we have some comments in the chat, Aaron? Thought I saw, or the Q&A maybe? No? I think I'm not able to get them, so
I
maybe
can read
we'll
them.
see them. Jason, that'd be great.
Sure. The first one is, what is the incentive of Fort Bragg to continue and bleed money on non-profitable services like the email, listserv, or even Fusion outside of Fort Bragg? Does it make sense? The next comment is, apart from goodwill, charity, what actual business interest does the city have in MCN, and what is the city actually buying that adds real value to the city?
Does anyone on the board want to tackle any of those, or should we maybe give the city of Fort Bragg a chance to address a few of these?
If Isaac wants to speak, or Sarah.
So good evening. Thanks for having us. Thanks for hosting this special meeting. And thanks for all the community members that came out.
You should probably introduce yourself.
My name's Sarah McCormick. I work for the city of Fort Bragg as an economic development manager. I've been working on this project since 2020. Back in 2020, the Mayor Norvell had made a broadband ad hoc committee, just basically having staff in this ad hoc committee really look at how we can improve connectivity in the city for our community. Really quickly after that, we had the pandemic. We had remote learning with a lot of students that couldn't access learning. We had employees that didn't have the capabilities of working remotely. We had people that couldn't do telehealth because they didn't know how to use it. And it just became obviously more imperative, not only for our community, but for everybody in the state and the country to figure out how to get this, close this digital divide and create this environment where broadband's just considered like utility, like water and sewer. And so we've really leveraged a lot of the money that came through the federal and state government through the American Rescue Act plan. We've gotten from the CPUC, we got $479,000 to take our desktop designs to really construction level detail. And then the CPUC just granted the city $10.3 million to construct the last mile. Part of that is a partnership with the state of California for the construction of the middle mile. At one point, when the state hit a budget deficit, they cut our part of the coast out of the Middle Mile project. And so we had to really advocate, figure out how to keep that going up here. And we're paying our share of co-locating the conduit so that it can go all the way up to Cleo now. So this is a really historical investment being made, and it's really exciting that the city's taking this on. We are a public entity, just like the school district, so it's not a giant corporate takeover. And I'll let the city manager speak more to that. One of the things I think we're really excited about is this digital literacy component. I think being a public utility, we're really going to be able to wrap our arms around how can we work with our seniors in our hospital to get people to access telehealth. How can we work with our schools to improve our STEM education and create more workforce development opportunities? So we're really seeing this as an opportunity to like lift everybody up. So for the employees that want to be a part of something big, city's big, we got students, we got hospitals, we got businesses, and it's really about lifting all of us up so we can fully participate. So I'm going to kind of give it to Isaac to answer some of the other questions, unless you want me to keep rolling with this. Okay. What were some of the questions? I just wanted to kind of level set so you guys knew like what we were doing. So
I think what I heard strongly from people who don't live in Fort Bragg is they want assurances that MCN services are going to be maintained, they're not going to be abandoned, and that you're going to keep the same type of, I mean, to my perspective, you buy an MCN because of its great reputation and services, and you have no interest at all in denigrating that.
We want the expertise to stay on the coast. I mean, we don't want to compete with you guys and put anybody out of business and go recruit new people. We want to keep everything that you guys have built over these decades and keep it here and bring it into the next
so what can
next era.
What can you do to reassure people in Casper and Mendocino that you'll keep their internet still functioning?
So I want to be a little bit careful just because I'm a staff person, and you know that you are a committee, and I was on a committee, so we haven't brought this to council yet, right? So you guys are our first swing at talking about this. But the assurances is everybody's going to have a soft landing. We're planning on keeping everybody up where they are right now. We do hope in the future, as technology grows, there's a lot of investment happening in broadband. There's also investment happening in other technologies as DSL is going down. So there might become new opportunities for people that maybe we would facilitate that move, if that made sense, or if Further Reach wanted to, make a relationship with them. But nobody's going to be left high and dry, and it's nothing that's in the works or planning on doing tomorrow. Right now, the idea is just how do we set up ourselves for success and strategically leverage the expertise we have here on the coast, and that's kind of where we're at. As far as where people will sit and be, we definitely see this as a customer-facing business. So there would be a location that customers could come in, they'd see you guys, call, they could talk to you. None of that would change. It would move from Mendocino to the city of Fort Bragg. And once all this develops, we'll figure out where that exactly is going to be. Unfortunately, we have several vacancies to select from.
Chair and Board, Isaac Whippy, City Manager for the City of Fort Bragg. Thank you for considering this. We appreciate all the public comment this evening. Yes, I just want to kind of echo what Sarah and the board for the ad hoc committee had mentioned. Yes, we do want to continue servicing outside the city limits, the current services that MCN already is offering, contingent on a LAFCO approval. LAFCO is the local agency formation commission that regulates city boundaries and special districts. So that's something that we have to run by them, and of course the city council for the city of Fort Bragg. This is also coming before them on the 25th at 6 p.m. at Town Hall in Fort Bragg to consider this if the board does move forward with it. But just to we acknowledge the impact MCN has made on the coast, the services you provide, and yes, we're not corporate, we're local government as well. We just want to take MCN and grow that even further by with the services we provide in the city limits, and also our mission as well for this project is to provide affordable, reliable, and high-speed internet. And in terms of some of the comments about the space. Yes, we don't have the capacity in City Hall to house this. We also care about the customer experience, from onboarding, from customer support, technical support, bill payments. So we're just gonna deploy city resources to that. But one of the reasons for acquiring MCN is also the employees and the technical expertise that y'all have to make this a success. And we certainly don't want to compete. We want to just complement what you already have and taking it to new levels. But and then finally, just again with the lists of the emails, we understand that that means a lot to customers, and we will certainly advocate for that to the city council. And we're just taking MCN as what it is and just enhancing that service without cutting stuff as well. And there are economics of scale there with, for us to even attain some of the customers with AT&Ts and Comcast in the city limits. I think it's about 4,000 for the take rate. So there's opportunities for growth there to offset some of the costs in servicing outside the city limits. So there's opportunities there. We're in the business of not making profit, but providing services. And I just want to echo that. We do that for a water enterprise at the city and wastewater as well, and we want to do the same here for MCN. Be happy to answer any questions from the board.
Are you going to keep the name?
It depends. We haven't really talked about that.
Put Fort Bragg gig on the applications for a lot of things. And I just made up a name, but nobody's really heard it except for the CPUC. Yeah. So we haven't really made a decision on that yet. It reassures the customers and the board. I mean, some of this could be in the contract for 5 years, whatever we need to do to make sure it's a smooth transition, and we just take MCN to new levels. So, yeah.
I mean, it seems you'd have to keep it for email addresses,
Yes, that will definitely keep.
The existing customers may not be able to get new MCN email address if they don't have the original.
Right.
Grab one quick.
Isaac, can you speak to the question about, why is Fort Bragg looking to buy MCN? What is the value to Fort Bragg? I think there's IP space, the expertise, the employees you spoke to, the customer base, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The customer base, as mentioned and known here, I think 70% of your customers are within city limits. So that's one. The second is the IP addresses that MCN currently has. So that is a lot of value. I mean, if we were to do this ourselves, we would go out to the open market and acquire those. The technical support that the personnel that MCN currently has, so that's a big advantage there as well. And again, we certainly don't want to compete with MCN. We just want to make sure that this local agency that has been on the coast for many years, we just want to keep that local and make sure to take it to new levels. But those are the reasons why we want to move forward with this deal, is because of acquiring that value and then coming onto the city's network, and it just checks all the boxes from a pro forma and a finance perspective.
Risk perspective.
And risk perspective as well.
You guys have a proven track record of doing a good job and keeping your customers and growing a great reputation, and so that takes some of the risk out of being a startup.
Yeah.
Have you thought at all about what Tom Yates mentioned, that technologies are changing and evolving all the time? If there was a new technology that worked out in the woods, would you be motivated to build on that in addition to fiber in Fort Bragg?
One of the cities that we talked to when we got started on this was in Ohio. It was in Fairlawn, Ohio. They're different but similar size. There were 7,000 people. They had a refuse like a transfer station, and they had a snow plow. They didn't have even as the water treatment and all the fancy stuff that we have. And they were able to build out a network that served their community and then just kept going out into the valley and serving all of the greater area. And so I think that with the investment of the middle mile going down Highway 1, there's going to be real opportunities for anybody to start plugging into that and start creating those networks. And so if the network is designed to serve within city limits, but has the build out capacity, like, well, not west, but kind of west, Millside, but to go north or south or east. But I don't know. I'm not really the tech person. I'm more of like the user person and wanting to see I want to see the science and the education happen. So maybe those kids will come up with the next technology that does that.
Okay, any other questions?
Danny, do you have a question for Fort Bragg?
Yes, regarding the listservs, would you plan to, if these were under your purview, would you plan to moderate the listservs? And are you aware of the circumstances leading to MCN's divestment, the school district's divestment of the listservs to our group, MCN Listserv Project?
We're fairly aware. We're very happy you took it over. And we would have no interest in intervening at all. We want you to moderate.
Any other questions for Isaac or Sarah? Tobin? Yeah.
You mentioned that you don't want to compete with MCN. Have you considered the other option, which would be to become one of their largest customers?
Wholesaling it. One of the things about the wholesaling is the idea of having a municipal utility that's really designed, constructed, and operated, maintained, serviced by the city is at control of cost. We can really give the most affordable rate to customers because we're not wholesaling it, which is kind of the big leap that we're doing as a public utility. It's more common to do open access and just lease out the assets and let the free market compete. So, I mean, if this all tanks, it'll end up being open access.
Yeah.
I just had a crazy idea. When you talked about the hospital, I was thinking of how the hospital operates here on the coast. There's not only the ownership by Adventist, but there's also a local hospital board that works with them and is sort of as an oversight. And I'm wondering if that might be worth looking at, to have some independent organization that works with the two of them, but has some, not only influence, but, if they can change, if they want to drop the lister, this board might say, no, that's not possible, and would have the authority to do that. The same way our local hospital board operates with Adventist.
I think actually, though, Rick, the district hospital board has no authority whatsoever on the day-to-day operation of the hospital.
I understand that, but they have influence and they act as an independent, an independent entity in terms of how the public and the hospital interact.
I think that
it's just the concept.
Yeah, I know. My reaction to the comment is not that it's bad. It's just that I think we have, in the fact that it's a public agency taking over from another public agency, exactly the kind of citizen opportunity to raise questions every month at board meetings. The same way that we have enjoyed and been held accountable by you coming to our meetings, you'll have that same ability to go to Fort Bragg City Council meetings and raise your issues if you see anything that's not to your liking. I mean, that's the difference between public ownership and private ownership. And we're not moving to a private model. We're continuing with a public model. So I think that it'll be interesting to see what kind of questions are asked of the Fort Bragg City Council when it goes before them on the 25th. And I encourage those of you who have concerns to attend then, because they're the body that is as more influential in the future if this goes through than our board will be. And you know, we could put things on paper, but the paper is not as important as the follow-through from the personnel, the staff, and the governing body. You know.
Yeah, John?
Yeah, regarding this phrase, put things on paper, and Rick brought it up too, and you know, there's a 5-year timeline mentioned. I do think that that's going to be an important process, and to not like skip over the course of the next 6 months that you're talking about. You know, I think we want to find that fine line between making sure stakeholder concerns are heard and met and guaranteed, but also allowing the city the flexibility to adapt to new changes. And so I just encourage everybody here in those processes to not cut any quarters on that part, you know, just to really take the time and to be fair and just and to hear each other out.
And I think that's characterized the you know, the discussions we've had from the beginning, you know, and it hasn't been a linear progress. You know, we've had some downtimes in between when the idea first surfaced and today. But I think that we've always operated in you know, with honesty and agreement that, you know, we were going to put our best efforts into making this potentially work well. I mean, there's no point in having it work poorly.
I just have one comment there along those lines regarding the MCN announced and discussion list. I have some ideas I can share with the Mendocino listserv project about that if they're going to be in those discussions. Are you guys wanting to include them in those discussions, or does it all be on the public?
I think that what I heard Isaac and Sarah say is that they are committed to maintaining the listservs and maintaining the authority of the listserv project to monitor and run them. So that they, from their point of view, they'll be doing nothing different than is going on now with the listservs.
Yeah, I think that I guess I can voice the. I'm thinking about a future scenario where, when things change, I think that it just would be really important for there to be some sort of exit clause or some sort of decision up front about what happens if you know, policies change from, like, say, the federal level. Say times have changed. We're no longer allowed to speak about certain things, or this is truth, this is not truth, and that goes to the state and the counties and the cities that want to maintain, you know, federal funds. At that point, I feel like there should be an exit clause where the you know, the community listserv project is able to maintain its autonomy and be able to you know, have some sort of exit clause there, and just be able to just like move off of the Fort Bragg oversight to become its own entity. You know, and I feel like, you know, I would be lobbying the listserv project to talk with you all about that. So, you know, hopefully maybe you guys can work that out before the board meeting with the city council. So, thank you.
Yeah, we're open to that.
Great. Thank you.
Sounds more like a lawyer question.
It seems like it may be as simple as just saying that the people running that listserv own the list of email addresses, not the city. It seems like that would possibly solve it.
And that might be nice for us too, because it might take that liability away if we don't have to have it So yeah, we'll look into it for sure.
Okay, thanks.
Any other
Did you
questions?
want to comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to
Do you want to
say-
come up here and,
Sure.
thank you, Isaac and Sarah.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Hello, I'm Rob Book, the manager at MCN. So I just wanted to say about the listserv, like currently right now as a customer of MCN, they own their own email list. So unless the terms of service were to drastically change, that would, in my mind, remain the same. So I just kind of thought I'd peek up and mention that.
Do you want, since you're up there, do you want to give us your take on this whole situation?
Well, yeah, I'd be happy to. I am remaining as neutral as possible. Let me say that, because it's my job right now as the MCN business manager to really serve at the direction of the board. So I need to know what you guys want to do, and then I will help sculpt to make sure the business goes in that direction. As I said, though, there are two sides to this, so it's very easy to remain neutral. I think there's pluses, there's minuses, and I encourage more comments from the public and from other people that may have them. If you're shy to come and say something, don't be. Come on up and say something. So I'm not going to say, hey, this is great, let's go for it. I'm not going to say, hey, this is horrible, let's not do it. I'm going to say, let's carefully weigh out each and every kind of comment and option that comes up and really, consider it if that's the way that you'd like to move forward. But if there's any questions, specifically for me, I'm open to answering any of them that I can.
I have a question for you, Rob.
Please.
If this scenario were to move forward, that this board decided not to move forward with this, and the city of Fort Bragg continues to roll out broadband, in your opinion, would it threaten the survival of MCN?
It would be certainly a difficult task, but that depends on how the city of Fort Bragg moves forward. If they look at someone like the city of Ukiah, who's had Sonic Internet awarded a bid to run their fiber project, they mentioned also an open thing, so we just don't know, I guess is the answer. I've been in a position right now where I'm not sure really which way we're going, so I'm at a fork in the road and I've kind of got things lined up, but nothing specific that we've moved on yet because we don't know which way we're going to go. So, but really to answer your question, and from what we've heard here already today, yeah, there are a lot of customers in Fort Bragg and it would be a challenge. We're up to anything, I would say, but to be realistic, yeah, it would certainly be a challenge.
Can I ask another question, which is, assuming we don't do this and MCN goes on as it currently is, I mean, my understanding is that Fusion is sort of a legacy product. It's old technology that's not, we can't sell new versions of, right? We can't accept new subscribers, and it's possible in the future that we might not even be able to continue to offer Fusion. Is that true? I mean,
I wouldn't say it's untrue. Yeah, we don't know at this point.
So
yeah.
We can't make any promises that we can offer Fusion products to our customers forever, even if everything stays the same, because nothing stays the same.
Right, nothing stays the same. And, so this was kind of brought up earlier. I just kind of wanted to clear the air on this too. The Public Utilities Commission, and hopefully I'm actually correct about this, so take it with a somewhat a grain of salt, but I believe the Public Utilities Commission still requires rural areas to have providers, ILECs, incumbent local exchange carriers like AT&T, to provide, phone service. Now, Sonic, as a CLEC, or a competitive local exchange carrier, has made the decision that it's not in their best interest to continue selling fiber and landlines, because they're fused together, thus the Fusion product. So that's why we're in this current situation that we're in today with Fusion. So does that kind of answer your question and maybe clear the air a little bit in terms of Fusion at this point is from Sonic has, said to us, we're going to continue to support the product, but you can't order any new circuits. So. Any other questions?
Any other questions for Rob or clarifications?
Don't be shy. Okay.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks. And if you have more questions, please call me back.
Rob, I have one more question about that.
Yeah.
When they say they're going to continue the service, is there any time frame on that?
Yeah, is there any, so what Francis is asking, is there any time frame that's been given by Sonic as to when they're going to continue the service until XYZ date? As of yet, no. We have not heard any termination date. We have seen one price increase. A lot of this is kind of tied up with AT&T being somewhat deregulated and them being allowed to be more flexible with how they set their prices. So, yeah.
I know one other concern, I don't know if this plays into this scenario. As we know from fires and other natural disasters, that redundancy is absolutely critical. And when the power goes down, our copper actually works, and we call CTV and say, hey, we don't have any power. So I think some of that consideration might play into the redundancy that happens along with the other question is, when the city of Fort Bragg says fiber, how big is the city of Fort Bragg? Is it a transfer? What's the area involved?
Well, I mean, we can look up the city limits of Fort Bragg, and maybe they want to comment more on that. But
Yeah, city limits, it's basically Hare Creek to Little Past Pudding Creek.
Okay, so everybody else is
For the fiber, for the underground broadband fiber. For this first run, just sticking within city limits.
and Frank, did you have a question?
I was just wondering how, well, it got to the point where there was such a large percentage in the city. I mean, other than Cleone and there's many people in Mendocino, how did that large percentage of MCN, I mean, we certainly outnumber the city residents, I think all of us. How did so many people end up in the city for MCN?
Well, I think to really answer that question, it has to do with kind of how DSL works. So DSL works going over the copper telephone lines from the phone company's central office to the side of your house, basically. That is distance limited. It's about 2.5 miles according to AT&T, but it maybe can stretch to 3, you know. And there's some other technologies out there to push it out further, but we haven't seen AT&T invest in any of those. So I would say that's why, because back in the days when we were doing dial-up, if you had a phone line, you could be a customer. You could connect, and people did. Look at where we're at today. So when DSL and Fusion came about, now there is this distance limitation, right? So we could only pick up who we could pick up. So in cities like Fort Bragg, which is a densely populated area, and there are, you know, lots of homes close to the central office, that's a great spot to pick up those customers. And that's how the larger number of customers is there. Make sense? Yeah.
I think it's also true that there are other technologies. You know, our voice over IP is largely in Fort Bragg simply because you need a fairly robust broadband system to support it.
You know, that is true, but I'm really glad you brought that up, because that is another service that we have that is somewhat distance independent. It can be anywhere as long as you have a high-speed internet connection. That could be on the city of Fort Bragg's fiber, that could be on Starlink, that could be on Further Reach, that could be on Comcast, that could be on AT&T's high-speed internet. So, you know, I think one of the reasons, not to counter you too much, but one of the reasons we see a lot of those customers in Fort Bragg, I think, is more because there is a population center there and businesses that need those services, like digital voice. But potentially, we could expand to anywhere in the world, honestly. With nowadays, you can even have an app on your phone that is digital voice that will allow you to take phone calls as long as you're connected to Wi-Fi anywhere you're at. Yes.
So the people on Zoom can't hear whenever, so we have to start passing the microphone around.
Yeah, I was trying to repeat the questions a little bit.
Yeah, Rob, thanks.
Trying to be
I was
cognizant of
going to do
that.
that too, and then I forgot to.
Rob, just taking some of the comments from earlier, what Tom said, what Jerry said, what Marcus said, the name is Mendocino Community Network. I think a lot of people have that MCN email address and are proud of that MCN email address because of what it means, its connection to the school, its connection to community, Mendocino Community. Mark has always said that was an important part of that name. If it were to go to the city of Fort Bragg, potentially become Fort Bragg Giga, whatever it might become, do you feel like some of your customer base would say, well, what's the difference between this and Starlink or Further Reach or something else?
Yeah, so I'd like to think no, because our customers, I think, know what the difference is between these other providers, and that's our staff. That's who answers the phone, that's, who talks to you, that kind of thing, who helps you. So, no, I don't. I don't think that would necessarily be a large loss. Yeah, sure, anytime things change, people can maybe get upset and move along to another provider. That's attrition, that occurs, that happens. Jason, did you have a question?
No.
Okay. Yeah, so again, trying to really remain neutral here. We'd be happy to work with the city of Fort Bragg in any way. It would be a challenge, but we could probably still move forward. I don't know quite how to remain as neutral as possible, but I think from what we've heard, I think the board, you guys need to kind of decide if you want to move forward. I think some of the key points that were made were anything that's specific should be in writing. There's some concerns of services remaining available to be active for people, and I don't think those things are insurmountable at the time, right now. So, yeah, there you go.
I have another question, which is for you and for Fort Bragg, which is that it seems like in the history of MCN, there have been many times in it that have stressed the school district when one manager has retired or left, and we've tried to find another one, and it seemed to me like it's difficult to find qualified people with the technical skills up here in this area. And if we're looking at a larger business because of the fiber, it seems like to keep the same level of service, we're going to need more employees. And how easy is it going to be to find them?
Yeah, and that's a really good point to bring up. Finding qualified employees is only part of the puzzle. Housing, is another part. The commitment for those people to move up here is another part. Obviously, if there are services available to them that they can take advantage of, maybe it makes it a little bit easier. But let's be honest, housing is very difficult to obtain up here and is getting worse, So, yeah, I'm not quite sure how to answer your question other than, yeah, there would be some challenges for sure. Bless you. It's always difficult to find qualified people, but, you just keep reaching out and, those people show up, and it comes and goes in waves too, where you'll get applications of people when you don't need anybody, and then you can't get applications for people when you do need people. So, yeah.
Can I make a motion?
Sure.
I'd like to move that we agree in principle to pursue this. The timeline that I have in front of me, if both the city council and this board agree in principle, there's a 1 to 2 month due diligence period, another month for negotiation, and then we have approval by both boards. And after that, contract signing and after that, transfer of assets, at least a 6-month process. Plenty of time to examine what we come up with. But I think that it behooves us to realize that this is a serious opportunity, and one that we shouldn't just ignore. So,
Is that part of your motion?
no. The motion is to accept it in principle and continue the process.
I'll second.
I'm going to move to sit down if that's okay.
Thank you, Rob. Thanks, Rob, appreciate it. Now that we have a motion on the table, does any other board member want to speak to it, or any other member of the public have further comments or questions?
I'll speak a little bit.
Sure.
I didn't say anything. I have not been on the MCN Advisory Committee in my entire time on the board. Nonetheless, the status and future of MCN has taken up a bit of our time, and with various topics coming along. And this seems like a very positive route to go. And I think what's most important that has been, and this has been raised by a few people, is that it's going from one public agency to another, not into the private sector. And that alone, I feel like, is the most significant. And that the City Council of Fort Bragg is right there. Any one of you, if you live in city limits, could be sitting on that board and making decisions about whatever the new entity is called. So there's various other factors that play in, but for me, that's the most significant.
I would like to suggest that as part of this process, it's been great having this many people show up, but to have even more chance for people to ask questions and make comments as part of the process seems like it would be a good idea. I don't know how to do that, whether that's a listserv thing or an email thing or what, or another board meeting. I'm not sure how many people yet know that this is happening.
I think it's also really hard for people to speak to or ask questions about a proposal they don't know the details of, right? And there's a lot of inefficiencies in that, right?
Yes.
Because at this point in the negotiations, they're confidential, so we can't just share the entire proposal, but maybe we can come up with, maybe the next step is some sort of a term sheet or something that could be shared publicly once we and the City of Fort Bragg are on the same page, that lays out some of these things. So people can be comforted, it's in paper in the term sheet that, X, Y, and Z will happen. That could be a useful piece of it. Obviously, all of our board meetings have a public comment period where anyone can come and talk to us, whether it's on the agenda or not. But yeah, I don't disagree with you. We could certainly create some additional way of doing that. Maybe after we have something that people can kind of look at and understand.
Jason, there was the post that Jason
Yeah,
put
it
on
was
the
in the
listserv yesterday.
It's been on the listserv. It's been in the newspaper. It's been on Mendo Voice. So I think it's getting out there.
Call a vote.
All right, yeah, let's do it. I think so.
Student trustee Quinlan?
Yes.
Trustee James?
Yes.
Trustee Morton?
Yes.
Trustee Schaefer?
Yes.
Trustee Ong?
Yes.
Trustee Griffin?
Yes. The one thing I would request from the committee going forward in the due diligence period is it would be great for us to have some sort of an idea of the valuation of the assets sort of internally for the district's purposes before deciding to sell it for, right? So that we're comfortable that we're not giving something away for less than what it's worth. So that's something on my mind as well.
So I think that we should hopefully plan at our December meeting to put this on the agenda. And we'll have a response from the city council meeting by then.
Yep.
And perhaps at that point, we can release a term sheet that will then be the basis for comment. And then before we get to the final stage where we have a contract in 3 months or so that we're going to be voting on.
That makes sense. Yeah. So we'll plan on it being on our December agenda.
Right.
Yep.
For those of us who don't go to Fort Bragg City Council meetings, is it on YouTube?
Yeah, it's on Facebook in the city of Fort Bragg, and it's also on the city's website at city.fortbragg.com.
I mean, the actual broadcast.
Yeah, you can watch it live from the city website.
Yep.
Or Facebook.
Someone repeat that so the Zoom callers can hear.
Oh, yeah. So if you want to watch the city, the city council meeting on the 25th, you can watch that on the city website at city.fortbragg.com or on the city's Facebook page.
And then is our December meeting December 17th, is that correct?
Yeah, Tuesday.
Tuesday, December 17th will be our December meeting, for anyone who wants to come back for that.
Here. Here.
Right here, yes. Okay, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you all.